I'm Jason Reynolds, a name that, in the circles I frequent, is synonymous with success. My life appears to be a textbook case of achievement and prosperity. I live in an exclusive neighborhood where the homes are grand and the lawns are impeccably manicured. My career as a corporate strategist has not only brought me considerable financial success but also a position of respect and influence. And then there's my marriage to Catherine, an elegant, sophisticated woman who seems to embody everything society deems ideal. To the outside world, Catherine and I are the epitome of the perfect couple. Our home reflects this image: tasteful decor, luxurious furnishings, and an atmosphere of refined elegance. Our social life is filled with high-profile events, charity galas, and intimate gatherings where we are often the center of attention, admired by friends and colleagues alike. It's a facade of perfection that we've carefully maintained, and for a long time it felt as though everything was indeed as flawless as it seemed. But recently, a creeping sense of unease has begun to disrupt the smooth surface of our seemingly ideal life. It started with small, almost imperceptible changes in Catherine's behavior, minor shifts that, when added together, began to form a disquieting pattern. Initially, these were changes so subtle that they could easily be overlooked, but as time went on, they became more pronounced and harder to ignore. One of the earliest signs was Catherine's increased attachment to her phone. In the past, she had always been fairly relaxed about her phone usage, often leaving it in another room while we spent time together. Lately, however, she seemed unable to part with it. She began carrying it with her everywhere, into the bathroom, to the kitchen, and even during our shared meals. It wasn't just the phone itself that drew my attention, but the way she would clutch it protectively, as if it were a lifeline she couldn't afford to lose. This new behavior was compounded by a sudden shift in her work schedule. Catherine, who had always been diligent about maintaining a balance between her professional and personal life, started working late more frequently than before. Her once predictable routine was now marked by erratic hours and vague explanations. She would come home well past dinner time, her tired eyes and distracted demeanor betraying the stress of the day. When I asked about her late nights, she would mention urgent projects and increasing responsibilities with an evasiveness that only heightened my suspicion. Her mood also began to change in ways that were hard to ignore. Catherine, who had always been known for her calm and composed nature, now displayed unpredictable bouts of irritability. The small things that used to elicit a smile or a laugh now seemed to set her off. The once warm and engaging conversations we shared became stilted and tense. Our evenings, once filled with the comfort of shared moments, were now marked by an unspoken distance and strained interactions. These subtle yet persistent changes began to form a pattern that I couldn't shake off. The phone, the late nights, the mood swings, they all seemed interconnected, pointing to something beneath the surface that I couldn't yet identify. Despite my efforts to address these issues with Catherine, she would dismiss my concerns with a calm that felt almost too practiced. Her reassurances, though polite and measured, left me with a growing sense of doubt and disquiet. The perfect image of our life began to crack, revealing unsettling hints of a deeper issue. The small inconsistencies and odd behaviors accumulated, painting a troubling picture that I couldn't ignore. The sense that something was off grew stronger, and I found myself increasingly preoccupied with the question of what might be hiding behind the facade of our seemingly perfect life. It was my birthday, a day I had looked forward to with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. Catherine had promised a special celebration, a quiet evening to ourselves after a busy week. And I was eager to enjoy some quality time with her. The evening started well enough, a gourmet dinner at home, the kind that Catherine so expertly prepared, accompanied by the soft glow of candlelight and the gentle hum of our favorite music. Yet, an undercurrent of tension ran beneath the surface, an unspoken discomfort that seemed to hover over us. After dinner, while Catherine was busy clearing the table and preparing dessert, I decided to check on a few things around the house. Our bedroom, a sanctuary of sorts, seemed like the right place to start. I found myself tidying up, moving small items back into place, and adjusting a picture frame that had slipped askew. It was during this routine task that I noticed Catherine's handbag lying open on the dresser. It was a beautiful leather bag, the kind that exuded understated elegance. And it was almost as if it was waiting for me to take a closer look. Curiosity got the better of me, and I glanced inside. At first I saw nothing unusual, just her usual assortment of personal items, a compact mirror, a few lipsticks, and some receipts. But then, nestled among these familiar objects, I spotted something that immediately caught my eye. It was a small, folded piece of paper, partially hidden beneath a layer of tissues. With a growing sense of apprehension, I carefully extracted the note from the bag. It was folded neatly, and as I unfolded it, my heart began to race. The note was written in a delicate, flowing script, a style that was both elegant and intimate. The words on the page were a stark contrast to the usual notes Catherine and I exchanged. This one was a romantic message, filled with affection and longing. "Dear Name," the note began, "I can't stop thinking about you. Every moment apart feels like an eternity. I cherish the time we've spent together and look forward to our next meeting with a fervent heart. Until then, please think of me as I think of you." The note was signed with a name I didn't recognize, David. It was the same name I had stumbled upon before, the one that had been associated with the phone number from the previous discovery. But now, seeing it written so personally, it was as if a cold, hard truth had been laid out before me. Along with the note was a phone number, written in the same elegant hand. I recognized the number as one I had previously found in the context of Catherine's recent behavior. One that didn't belong to anyone I knew but belonged to someone Catherine had been in contact with. The shock of finding the note was immediate and profound. My suspicions, which had previously been vague and unformed, now crystallized into a clear and undeniable reality. The romantic language, the personal tone, and the connection to the phone number all pointed to a betrayal that was both painful and precise. It wasn't just a matter of small suspicious behaviors anymore. I now had concrete evidence that Catherine was involved with someone else. Holding the note in my trembling hands, I felt a wave of emotions crashing over me. Anger, hurt, confusion. The perfect facade of our life, which had seemed so unassailable, was now cracked wide open. The evidence was undeniable, and with it came the crushing realization that my marriage, which I had thought was built on trust and shared values, had been fundamentally compromised. I folded the note back up and carefully placed it where I had found it, trying to compose myself before Catherine returned. The evening, once filled with the promise of celebration, now felt hollow and tainted. I knew that the discovery would change everything, but for the moment, I needed to confront the truth and gather my thoughts before taking the next step. The evidence was clear, and my path forward would be determined by how I chose to respond to this painful revelation. In the aftermath of discovering the note, the reality of Catherine's betrayal was like a heavy, oppressive fog that settled over every aspect of my life. The romantic language, the secret phone number, it all pointed to a profound breach of trust that shattered the image of our life together. I knew that I needed more than just the note to confront this situation. I needed to understand the full extent of the betrayal and confirm my suspicions with undeniable proof. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I resolved to conduct my investigation. I had always prided myself on my analytical skills, and now, more than ever, I needed to apply them with precision and care. As a corporate strategist, I had developed a network of contacts and resources that would prove invaluable in this situation. I began to tap into these connections, hoping to uncover the truth behind Catherine's secretive behavior. First, I focused on tracking Catherine's communications. I had already noted the phone number from the note, and I decided to use my professional network to trace its origins. I contacted a trusted colleague who worked in telecommunications, someone I had known for years and whose discretion I could rely on. I explained that I was investigating a personal matter, and asked if he could assist in identifying the owner of the phone number. Within a few days, I received the information I needed. My contact confirmed that the phone number belonged to David Hawkins, a name that was not unfamiliar to me. David was a colleague of mine in the business world, a fellow executive who had worked in the same industry for years. We had crossed paths on several occasions, attending the same conferences and industry events. On the surface, David was a respected professional, known for his sharp mind and successful track record. Yet now his name was becoming synonymous with betrayal. Armed with this new information, I delved deeper into David's background. I accessed professional databases and social media profiles to gather more details about him. It wasn't long before I discovered that David and Catherine had been in frequent contact. Their interactions were marked by a level of intimacy that went beyond mere professional courtesy. Emails, messages, and even social media posts revealed a pattern of communication that was personal. One email in particular caught my eye. It was a thread between Catherine and David that was filled with affectionate language and private plans. They discussed meeting up at various locations, using code names and euphemisms that left no room for misinterpretation. It was evident that their relationship went far beyond a simple affair. It was a full-fledged ongoing romance. As I pieced together the evidence, the reality of the situation became even more disheartening. The intimate conversations, the coded language, and the frequent meetings all painted a clear picture of an emotional and physical affair. David, a man I had once respected and considered a colleague, was now revealed to be the very person with whom Catherine had been betraying me. With the evidence mounting, I felt a mixture of anger and resolve. The investigation had confirmed what I had feared but had also provided me with the clarity I needed. I now had concrete proof of the affair, and the name of the man involved was someone I knew all too well. The next step was to confront Catherine and David with this knowledge. The process of gathering evidence had been methodical and in some ways impersonal, but the emotional impact of the betrayal was undeniable. I needed to decide how to move forward, knowing that the confrontation would change everything and that the repercussions would be profound. The investigation had brought me face to face with a harsh reality, and the path ahead was fraught with difficult choices and inevitable confrontation. The shock of Catherine's betrayal had left me reeling, but with the evidence firmly in hand, I felt a surge of resolve. The perfect image of our life was shattered, and the facade of our seemingly flawless marriage had been exposed for what it truly was. I had spent countless hours contemplating my next steps, and with a clear vision of the pain and betrayal I had experienced, I devised a plan for revenge that was both calculated and deliberate. My strategy was multifaceted, designed to strike at Catherine and David from several angles. The plan revolved around three primary objectives: manipulating public perception, applying financial pressure, and creating uncomfortable situations that would force them to confront the consequences of their actions. The first step in my plan was to manipulate public opinion, leveraging our social circle and professional networks to expose the affair. I began by subtly planting seeds of doubt among our friends and acquaintances. I engaged in conversations about the recent changes in Catherine's behavior, framing them in a way that suggested something was seriously amiss. I shared innocuous but telling anecdotes about her late nights and the mysterious phone calls, carefully guiding the narrative without directly accusing her. I also used my position in the business world to my advantage. At industry events and gatherings, I made casual references to Catherine's suspicious activities, hinting at a personal crisis without revealing too much. The goal was to create an environment where whispers of her infidelity would spread, leading to a gradual erosion of her and David's reputations. By the time the truth fully emerged, the damage would already be done, and their credibility would be severely compromised. The second component of my plan involved applying financial pressure on David. Given his status as a business executive, I knew that hitting him where it hurt the most, his wallet, would have a significant impact. I used my professional connections to subtly influence key stakeholders and clients to reconsider their engagements with David's company. This involved orchestrating a series of strategic moves, suggesting alternative partners, highlighting potential conflicts of interest, and leveraging any existing concerns about his business practices. Additionally, I reached out to industry analysts and reporters, providing them with information that, while not directly incriminating, cast doubt on David's professional integrity. I carefully crafted reports and leaks that questioned his business ethics and questioned his company's financial stability. The aim was to create a ripple effect that would cause clients and partners to distance themselves from David, leading to a significant decline in his business prospects and financial standing. The final aspect of my plan was to orchestrate situations that would force Catherine and David to confront the reality of their actions. I began by organizing a series of social gatherings and professional events that would bring them into the public eye. These events were designed to be high-profile and attention-grabbing, ensuring that any awkwardness or tension between them would be on full display. I also arranged for a private event where Catherine and David would be expected to attend. This gathering, under the guise of a business networking event, was a setup to expose their affair in a controlled environment. I invited mutual friends and colleagues, ensuring that the event would be well attended, and that any revelations would be witnessed by those who mattered. The goal was to force them to face the consequences of their actions publicly, providing a dramatic and humiliating spectacle. Throughout this process, I maintained a facade of calm and composure, carefully orchestrating each move to ensure that the execution of my plan was flawless. The complexity of the scheme required meticulous attention to detail, but I was determined to see it through. Each stage was designed to ensure that Catherine and David would not only face the repercussions of their betrayal, but would also experience a profound sense of shame and discomfort. As I set my plan into motion, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and apprehension. The path to revenge was fraught with moral and ethical dilemmas, but the depth of my hurt and the desire for justice drove me forward. The plan was set, And with each calculated step, I prepared myself for the inevitable fallout, knowing that the pursuit of retribution would come with its own set of challenges and consequences. With the revenge plan set into motion, the next phase involved executing a strategy designed to create chaos and dismantle Catherine and David's carefully constructed public personas. The goal was to expose their affair to friends, colleagues, and acquaintances, ensuring that their reputations were irreparably damaged. I needed to be both subtle and deliberate, weaving the narrative of their betrayal into conversations and social settings in a way that would spread like wildfire. I began by casually discussing Catherine and David's behavior with our closest friends and mutual acquaintances. These conversations were framed as concerned inquiries, carefully crafted to sound like genuine worry rather than accusations. I talked about Catherine's unusual behavior, her late nights, and her secretive phone calls, all without directly pointing fingers. The tone was one of concern and confusion, making it seem as though I was simply trying to understand the changes I had noticed. At social gatherings, I subtly introduced anecdotes that hinted at Catherine's and David's indiscretions. For instance, at a dinner party, I shared a story about an alarming phone call Catherine received, making sure to emphasize her reaction and the secrecy surrounding it. I let these snippets of information leak out in a way that seemed natural and unforced, ensuring that they were heard by as many people as possible. As the rumors began to spread, I took steps to amplify their impact. I leveraged my professional network to include references to Catherine and David's behavior in casual business discussions. During meetings and industry events, I would mention the personal issues that seemed to be affecting Catherine's work performance and David's professional demeanor. This indirect approach ensured that the whispers reached influential figures within our business community. The spread of the rumors was further fueled by the strategic use of social media. I made sure to engage in online discussions about relationship problems and infidelity, carefully crafting posts and comments that resonated with the issues at hand. By positioning myself as someone who was grappling with similar concerns, I subtly guided the conversation towards Catherine and David, creating an environment where their actions were openly questioned. The impact of these efforts was not immediate, but it was noticeable. The once solid reputation of Catherine and David began to show signs of strain. Mutual friends and colleagues started to distance themselves, and their social circles became increasingly uncomfortable. Conversations about them became more frequent, and the stories about their behavior took on a life of their own. The rumors grew more elaborate and salacious with each retelling, further eroding their credibility and social standing. In professional circles, the effects were even more pronounced. Clients and business partners started to express concerns about associating with David's company, and whispers of his questionable ethics began to circulate. Catherine's previously respected image as a reliable and trustworthy professional started to crumble, as colleagues began to question her integrity and commitment. Throughout this period, I carefully monitored the fallout from my actions. I kept track of how the rumors were evolving, and how they were affecting Catherine and David's lives. The chaos I had set in motion was unfolding as planned, with their reputations suffering under the weight of the whispers and innuendo. The public exposure of their affair had begun to take its toll, creating a climate of discomfort and suspicion that followed them wherever they went. Despite the satisfaction of watching their carefully curated lives unravel, there was an underlying sense of unease. Chaos is a powerful tool for revenge, but it also comes with its moral implications. I had orchestrated a situation where their personal and professional lives were in turmoil, and while it felt like a form of justice, it also left me grappling with the consequences of my actions. The next steps would involve maintaining the pressure and ensuring that the damage continued to spread. With their reputations in tatters, it was only a matter of time before they would have to confront the reality of the chaos that had been unleashed. With Catherine and David's personal lives in disarray and their reputations beginning to suffer, I turned my attention to the next phase of my revenge plan, applying financial pressure on David. I aimed to use my business connections and strategic influence to orchestrate a crisis that would destabilize his company, ultimately leading to significant financial strain and escalating conflicts between him and Catherine. My first step was to leverage my network of contacts within the business world. I began by subtly spreading concerns about David's business practices and the stability of his company. I used my professional connections to raise questions about his financial health, creating a sense of uncertainty among clients, investors, and partners. I carefully timed my interventions to coincide with important business meetings and industry conferences, ensuring that the rumors about David's company gained traction at the most opportune moments. One of the most effective tools in my arsenal was influencing key stakeholders and clients to reconsider their engagement with David's firm. I reached out to prominent clients and business partners, gently suggesting that they might want to explore alternative options due to potential conflicts of interest and the questionable stability of David's company. I framed these conversations as precautionary measures, emphasizing the need for due diligence and risk management. I also used my position to initiate a series of formal reviews and audits that would cast a spotlight on David's business practices. By engaging industry analysts and reporting agencies, I was able to create reports that questioned the integrity of his financial statements and the ethical standards of his company. These reports, while not overtly incriminating, raised enough red flags to cause concern among investors and clients. The resulting scrutiny created a ripple effect that further eroded confidence in David's business. To amplify the impact of these financial pressures, I orchestrated a series of strategic maneuvers designed to exacerbate existing issues within David's company. I subtly encouraged competitors to capitalize on David's growing vulnerabilities, offering them information and insights that could be used to their advantage. This not only increased the competitive pressure on David's firm but also led to a series of high-profile business losses and contractual disputes. As the financial strain began to mount, I ensured that the pressure was relentless. I coordinated with media outlets to publish articles and news stories that highlighted the problems facing David's company. These stories were carefully crafted to emphasize the growing financial instability and the potential for future crises. The media attention contributed to a growing sense of panic among investors and clients, further destabilizing David's business. The effects of these actions were swift and severe. David's company began to experience a decline in revenue, and several major clients decided to terminate their contracts. The financial losses led to increased internal conflicts, as David struggled to manage the fallout and maintain control over his business. The mounting pressures and financial difficulties created a tense environment that spilled over into his personal life, leading to frequent arguments and strained interactions with Catherine. The impact on David and Catherine's relationship was palpable. The stress and financial strain exacerbated the existing tension between them, leading to frequent conflicts and escalating disagreements. Their once hidden affair became even more difficult to manage as their personal and professional lives collided in a tumultuous blend of anger and frustration. I observed the unfolding chaos with a mix of satisfaction and detached interest. The financial pressure had achieved its intended effect, destabilizing David's business and intensifying the conflicts between him and Catherine. The carefully orchestrated crisis had set the stage for further complications, and the repercussions of my actions were now becoming increasingly evident. As David's financial woes deepened and his relationship with Catherine continued to deteriorate, I prepared for the final phase of my plan. The path to revenge was nearing its conclusion, and the next steps would involve ensuring that the damage I had inflicted was both complete and enduring. The final phase of my revenge plan was set to unfold with a dramatic flourish, one that would ensure Catherine and David faced the full extent of their betrayal in front of an audience. The stage was set for a public exposure that would not only confirm their affair but also deliver the ultimate blow to their reputations and relationship. The evening was designed to be both a spectacle and a statement, ensuring that their actions were laid bare for all to see. I chose the venue with careful consideration. It had to be a place where Catherine and David would feel comfortable and unguarded, a setting that would contrast sharply with the public humiliation I had planned. The location was a renowned restaurant known for its exclusive ambiance and impeccable service. It was a venue with an air of sophistication, making it the perfect backdrop for the grand reveal. The dinner was billed as a high-profile gathering, a soiree that would bring together influential figures from both the business and social spheres. I sent out invitations to a select group of guests, ensuring that the attendees included key figures from Catherine's and David's professional and social circles. The guest list was curated to include people who would be most impacted by the revelation, amplifying the fallout from the evening's events. As the date of the dinner approached, I meticulously arranged the details to ensure that the evening would proceed according to plan. I coordinated with the restaurant's management to secure a private dining room, ensuring that the event would be intimate yet adequately sized for the crowd I had invited. The room was elegantly decorated, with soft lighting and fine table settings that created an atmosphere of sophistication and anticipation. On the night of the event, Catherine and David arrived separately, each unaware of the other's presence. Catherine had been led to believe that it was a celebratory dinner in her honor. while David was under the impression that it was a casual business meeting with a few colleagues. Both were unaware that I had orchestrated the evening to culminate in their public exposure. As the guests mingled and enjoyed their meals, I bided my time, waiting for the opportune moment to reveal the truth. The atmosphere was one of subdued elegance, with soft music playing in the background and waitstaff moving discreetly among the tables. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could feel the tension building as the evening progressed. When the time was right, I stood up to make a toast. The room fell silent as the guests turned their attention to me, their curiosity piqued by the sudden shift in the evening's focus. I began with a few well-chosen words, praising the company and the esteemed guests. Then, with a calculated pause, I shifted the tone of my speech. "I'm grateful to all of you for joining us tonight," I began, my voice steady but carrying a note of gravity. "However, there is something important that needs to be addressed, something that concerns the integrity of our personal and professional lives." I paused for effect, allowing my words to sink in. Catherine and David exchanged puzzled glances, sensing that something was amiss. I continued, pulling out the note I had previously discovered, and holding it up for everyone to see. "This evening," I said, "is about unveiling the truth that has been concealed behind a facade of deception." This note, I gestured to the paper, was found in Catherine's possession. It's a personal message from someone who is not just a stranger but someone very familiar. The room was silent as I revealed David's name, and gasps of disbelief filled the space. I proceeded to describe the affair in detail, sharing the evidence I had gathered and the impact it had on my life. The guests, many of whom were close friends and colleagues of Catherine and David, listened in stunned silence as I laid bare the extent of their betrayal. Catherine's face turned pale, and David's expression shifted from confusion to a mixture of anger and embarrassment. The public nature of the exposure was a powerful tool, stripping away any semblance of control they had over the situation. The once sophisticated dinner had transformed into a spectacle of public humiliation. The reactions of the guests were varied. Some were sympathetic, while others were visibly appalled. The evening had achieved its purpose, creating a moment of reckoning that would forever tarnish the reputations of both Catherine and David. The fallout was immediate, with whispers and shocked conversations erupting among the guests. The exposure was complete, and the damage was done. As the evening drew to a close, the once elegant atmosphere of the dinner had been replaced by a sense of chaotic aftermath. Catherine and David left the restaurant, their departure marked by the stares and murmurs of the guests. The public reveal had been a success, ensuring that their betrayal would be remembered and discussed for a long time to come. In the aftermath of the evening, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and relief. The plan had come to fruition, and the consequences of their actions had been laid bare for all to see. The final act of my revenge had been executed with precision, and the repercussions would reverberate through both their personal and professional lives. The aftermath of the public exposure had left a trail of devastation, both personal and professional, for Catherine and David. With their affair exposed and their reputations in tatters, I decided it was time to step back and allow them to confront the full impact of their actions alone. The final stage of my revenge was not about further humiliation, but about letting them experience the consequences of their betrayal in the most personal way. I arranged for Catherine and David to be left alone in a private setting, ensuring that they had the space and time to process what had transpired. The venue was an upscale, secluded retreat, an environment that was designed to be both familiar and isolating. It was a place where they could no longer escape the reality of their situation, and where they would be forced to face the fallout of their actions. Upon arrival, Catherine and David were met with an atmosphere of palpable tension. The once elegant surroundings now felt like a cage, a reminder of the lives they had shattered. I had carefully orchestrated the setting to ensure that their time alone would be marked by reflection and confrontation. The retreat was equipped with everything they needed for a comfortable stay, but the luxury of the surroundings only served to highlight the emotional turmoil they were about to experience. As I left them to their own devices, I could almost sense the gravity of the situation weighing down on them. The silence in the retreat was thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Catherine, usually so composed, appeared visibly shaken. The weight of the public humiliation and the realization of the depth of her betrayal had taken a toll on her. She wandered through the retreat, her movements slow and deliberate, as if trying to grasp the enormity of what had just happened. David, on the other hand, was dealing with the immediate fallout from the financial and social crisis I had orchestrated. The business losses and the public scandal had placed him in a precarious position. He was facing not only the threat of financial ruin but also the scorn of his professional network. The pressure was mounting, and his attempts to salvage his reputation and stabilize his business were proving to be both challenging and fruitless. The retreat, meant to be a sanctuary, had become a crucible for their emotions. Catherine and David were left to confront each other with no distractions or escape routes. The isolation of the setting forced them to face the stark reality of their situation. Without the buffer of social pleasantries or professional obligations, their interactions became strained, marked by accusations, apologies, and the raw emotions that had been suppressed for so long. Catherine's demeanor shifted from shock to deep-seated regret. She grappled with the consequences of her actions, both on a personal level and in the context of her relationship with David. The reality of her choices weighed heavily on her, and she struggled to reconcile the person she had become with the life she had once cherished. The retreat offered no solace, only a mirror reflecting the shattered remnants of her life. David's struggle was equally intense but of a different nature. The financial pressures and professional setbacks were mounting, and he found himself increasingly isolated from the support networks that had once been his lifeline. The once respected business executive was now facing a cascade of problems that seemed insurmountable. His interactions with Catherine were tinged with frustration and anger, as he confronted the dual burden of financial instability and the emotional fallout from the affair. As the days at the retreat passed, the emotional and psychological toll of the situation became more pronounced. Catherine and David had no choice but to face each other's anger and disappointment, with the weight of their shared betrayal hanging heavily between them. The isolation had created an environment where their raw emotions could not be hidden or ignored. They were forced to reckon with the choices they had made, and the impact those choices had on their lives and the lives of others. My decision to leave them alone was deliberate. I wanted them to experience the full range of consequences of their actions, both the immediate emotional fallout and the long-term ramifications of their choices. The retreat was meant to be a place of reckoning, where they could confront the reality of their betrayal without any external distractions or interventions. In the quiet aftermath of their solitude, I knew that Catherine and David would be left to reflect on the profound changes in their lives. The public exposure had already dealt a significant blow, but the personal isolation and the confrontation with their failures added a final layer of complexity to their experience. As they faced each other in the silence of the retreat, they would be forced to come to terms with the consequences of their actions, ultimately reshaping their lives in ways they could never have anticipated. As I reflected on the chain of events that had unfolded, I found myself standing at the crossroads of closure and renewal. The intense journey of betrayal, revenge, and emotional upheaval had reached its final chapter, and it was time for me to step back and assess the path I had traveled. The echoes of the past still lingered, but I was determined to find a way to move forward, leaving behind the bitterness of betrayal and embracing the possibility of a new beginning. The retreat where Catherine and David had faced their reckoning had also served as a turning point for me. As I observed the aftermath of my carefully orchestrated plan, I began to recognize the profound impact that this tumultuous experience had on my sense of self. The initial surge of vindictive satisfaction had given way to a more reflective and contemplative state. I realized that while the revenge had been executed with precision, the true cost was measured not only in the external consequences but also in the internal turmoil it had wrought. I took a step back from the situation, consciously choosing to release the grip of anger and resentment that had fueled my actions. The process of seeking revenge had been a consuming force, and while it had provided a sense of justice, it had also left me feeling emotionally spent. The weight of orchestrating such a complex and far-reaching plan had taken its toll, and I found myself yearning for a sense of peace and resolution. In the quiet moments of reflection, I began to understand the important lessons that the experience had imparted. The pursuit of revenge, while satisfying in its way, had underscored the fragility of trust and the destructive power of betrayal. It became clear that while I had sought to right the wrongs done to me, the process of vengeance had also revealed the deeper complexities of human relationships and the often unseen consequences of our actions. The realization was sobering. Revenge, though powerful, was ultimately a double-edged sword. It had provided me with a semblance of justice, but it had also left me grappling with the ethical and emotional implications of my choices. The pursuit of retribution had consumed a significant portion of my life and energy, and I was ready to reclaim my sense of self and move forward with a renewed perspective. With this newfound clarity, I made the conscious decision to release the past, and focus on building a future free from the shadows of betrayal. The process of letting go was both liberating and challenging. I had to confront and process the lingering emotions of anger, hurt, and disillusionment. It was a journey of healing that required introspection and self-compassion. In the months following the resolution of the conflict, I began to rebuild my life with a focus on personal growth and emotional well-being. I immersed myself in activities and pursuits that brought me joy and fulfillment, creating a sense of purpose beyond the realms of vengeance and betrayal. I sought out new relationships and connections, forging bonds with people who valued honesty and integrity. The journey of moving forward was not without its struggles. There were moments of doubt and residual pain, but I approached these challenges with a sense of determination and hope. I learned to embrace the lessons from my experiences, using them as a foundation for personal development and a renewed outlook on life. As I looked ahead, I found solace in the knowledge that I had emerged from the ordeal with a deeper understanding of trust and the complexities of human nature. The experience had shaped me in ways I had not anticipated, and while the scars of betrayal remained, they were now part of a larger narrative of resilience and growth. In conclusion, the path I had taken through betrayal, revenge, and reflection had led me to a place of acceptance and renewal. I had learned that true peace and contentment come not from seeking vengeance but from letting go of the past and embracing the possibilities of the future. With a heart unburdened by the weight of past grievances, I began to forge a new chapter in my life, one marked by hope, integrity, and the promise of a brighter, more fulfilling future.